This is the Tuesday live show coming at you each and every week. I record all my shows and post them on my website, sellingcoaching.com, under the university. Check that out. I got a fantastic group of resources there for you, probably so much more than you've ever seen anywhere else, as I help coaches transition to a full-time business. Right on the homepage of sellingcoaching.com, I have a fantastic resource, and that is launching your full-time coaching business, the first 3 vital steps. I want you to check that out. It's a great video resource for you. If you enter your name and email address, you'll receive that instantly, and that's going to really help you take a look at the key vital elements that you need to consider and you need to understand before and as you start to launch your full-time coaching business. That's also going to put you into my email community, not only so you can get some great wisdom from me on a weekly basis, but also I want you to start to understand how you can utilize email to stay in touch with and stay in front of your audience, because that's very vital, how we use email to stay in touch with our community. With that being said, today's topic is helping you decide on a niche. And this is one of the biggest challenges that coaches run into as they're launching their coaching business. It's also the foundational element to your coaching business that you really need to understand before you do things like maybe creating a website as an example. And if it's challenging for you to figure it out, you can certainly start speaking your message. And I don't recommend that you staying behind the scenes. Oh my God, I haven't figured this out. So staying there until you figure it out, that's probably a big mistake that most coaches make, is they don't start vocalizing their message before they even really know what that is. I had a brand new mentor coaching client just hire me before the live show today. And typically one of the first assignments I'll give my mentor coaching clients when they hire me is, all right, well, let's do a Facebook live video broadcast from your Facebook page, share it in my Selling Coaching Facebook group, and start talking about your message. I don't like to put any restraints on the time and the technology. If they've never done one before, I don't care if, there's no light or they can't see you, whatever the case is. I don't care what you look like or even sound like, for that matter. I just want you to start vocalizing your message and start to see what comes up. Because what I'm going to talk about today is helping you decide on your niche. I really want you to start to understand where it comes from. And I know you've probably heard different things before, and there's all these people trying to tell you these stories. Typically, when I work with my mentor coaching clients, before they even hire me, if they get to the point where I offer them a complimentary mentor coaching session before they hire me, typically in that first session, I would say probably like 8 out of 10 people in that first hour with them, I'm able to get them to a place where they really understand their message and who they're going after with what specifically. And if not, then we're very close to it by that second session where we'll kind of, wrap it up and begin to move forward. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone stays exactly in that spot, because just like with any place where we start from, there's going to be a natural evolution that stems from there, because there's always going to be a natural evolution in your business as you evolve. Things in your life change, situations, circumstances change. Your perspectives then change. Even if you're not actively working on your perspectives, they start to change, and how you view life, how you do things, because it all stems from your philosophy. So your perspective changes, your philosophy shifts, and therefore your message will shift. Those of you who've been following me way back when I was JSL coaching, 15 years ago, and then I transitioned from JSL coaching into True You Now. And then as of now, as I'm helping coaches transition to a full-time business with Selling Coaching, and in 5 years from now, who knows where I'll be, and in terms of what my message has shifted. And even in the 4+ years or so that I've been helping coaches transition to a full-time business, my message has evolved and shifted in terms of how I present it, and it's been refined, et cetera. And that's exactly what's going to happen with you and your message. You've just got to trust it enough to understand it of where you're starting off from. And where I want you to start off from is to start simply from your story. So what I'm going to do is to help you understand this, I'm going to share a couple of my client stories that I've been working with that really, even when I'm talking to them, there's been breakthroughs for me in terms of understanding their message. And that's part of the value is as a mentor coach, is what I love to be when I'm collaborating with someone is that back and forth collaboration. Sometimes when you're just by yourself, it's hard to come up with it because you're in your own message. Like even my brand new mentor coaching client that hired me today is like, she was in that space where, she was in her own story and, couldn't quite see it for what it was. And then, spent 15, 20 minutes telling me and talking me through it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is your brand. This is your message. So let me talk about these stories. And with these stories, let me give you an idea of what we're thinking and what we're trying to understand, what you need to understand for yourself within your message is essentially within your headline or your message is we need to figure out who you're helping with what specifically, with what specifically. There needs to be enough value in that outcome. There needs to be enough value for that person in that outcome that they would be willing to pay you thousands of dollars to help them with that. And what that means is that you need to start to understand that for yourself. Where's the value that I bring to the market? Because as an entrepreneur, we get paid for the value that we bring to the market. Therefore, if we're bringing a valuable service like coaching, which is very ethereal and experiential, meaning you can only understand the value of it once they've experienced it, or once you've experienced it, we deserve to understand the value that we're bringing to the market, right? So as I help coaches transition to a full-time business, I understand my value in terms of why would someone pay me thousands of dollars to help them with that outcome of creating a full-time coaching business, right? So I understand that value, and then through my education, like these live shows, if you go to my website, sellingcoaching.com, with the resource I have on the homepage, and all the stuff I have in my university, other thing that I teach there, stuff that I go on my private Facebook group, is I start to communicate that value. But I'm not communicating that value from hire me as your mentor coach and talking about all the benefits of hiring me as your mentor coach and talking about the actual service of mentor coaching. Is I'm educating you. I'm beginning to help you. And through me helping you and delivering that information, you can start to understand, wow, I can now start to see the value. If I were to hire Jeff, if I were to work with him, I start to understand the value of what that would be like. This is what I want you to begin doing. And so where we're going to start off from is we're going to start off from your story. And so a couple different stories. So one of my clients, I had been working with her for quite a while in terms of, let's say, almost a year. And in almost that year time frame, we hadn't done a lot of sessions. I'd probably say, without exact numbers, probably like 4 sessions or so. And the reason why it was delayed so long was because a lot of things were going on in this person's life, and amongst them having a baby, working a full-time career, building a new home. So a lot of transition in their world. So we had to find their pace. And quite frankly, they were distracted with a lot of things. Not a bad thing. It was just that's where they were at. And then they're also wrapping up with a coaching school as well. So their time, their energy, their commitments were really wrapped up. And so when they started with me, it was kind of like we had to kind of like pull back and say, okay, why don't we wrap up some of these things before we continue doing our work together? So now fast forward, had the baby, finished with the coaching school, house is now well underway and being built. Now let's start working together. And so we're really revisiting that message of the person's story and who they're helping with, what specifically. And it was like we set the structure up, we set our marketing structure up, we set our live events up, our email marketing, get everything like that set up. But then it was like week after week when we were meeting, it was like something was missing for them. No, I mean, they still were busy, right? They were obviously had a newborn, a lot of things going on, and then they were going to go back to work. And even before they went back to work, as much time they had, there was something that was missing in terms of their engagement with their headline, in terms of who they were helping with what specifically. Even though we knew that was the population, in other words, helping overwhelmed moms. And that was really, really that market, is working with those overwhelmed moms. And so what was happening was they weren't getting their message out there as a result. And that you probably find that too, is when you don't quite know your message or feel comfortable with your message, it's more challenging to just get on a Facebook Live like this or do a video broadcast or write something in an email or record a podcast. It's challenging to do. And so then one session, they started telling me about their Instagram profile called Cozy Family Home. And you feel free to check that out. Just type in Cozy Family Home on Instagram. And they were telling about this profile that they created. And they were sharing, or she was sharing her story of building a home, because it was her and her husband's dream home, and they've got children now, and they've been dreaming about this for a long time. And she was sharing her journey along the way. And she's so excited to get in there every single day and post. And as busy as she was, and even when she went back to her new job and with the newborn and things like that, it's like she was getting there every day, and when she was posting and she was sharing things and she was commenting, things like that. And each and every day, each and every week, her following was growing and growing. And at the time when we started talking about this, I believe she had done it for maybe 2 months. So it was fairly new, and already was up to like 400 people or so, 400 followers. And she's getting lots of comments and likes, and people are sharing and they're participating. As I'm sitting there listening to her, I'm like, why did you tell me about this sooner? Because I'm like, this is your business, right? So if we rewind and we think about this, is that our business is all about sharing a message that we're passionate about, that ultimately we can help people with something. And ultimately is we want to grow an audience of people. We want to attract people to what we're speaking about and what our underlying message was. And I said, with what you're doing with Cozy Family Home is a business. Even though right now you're not monetizing it, you're building a following. You're not thinking about building a following or building fan base or building an audience. You're not thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to monetize this? You're just doing it from pure passion. But what that is building a business. Right? So you're sharing along your journey. And the greatest thing about it is she wasn't just sharing the logistical things about building a home. Yes, she was sharing some of those things, but she was relating it to women and being the center of the home. And when you're building a home, it's not just the physical home. It's that metaphorical home. It's that home you're building a relationship with your significant other, with your husband or whatever it is, with your children. You have a career. So it's those professional moms who have that career and they're trying to that juggling act of being everything for everybody. And it's the challenges that you're having to go through. And it's that metaphor of building a home and how that translates into their lives. Right? And those are some of the message that she was sharing. And I'm like, this is your business. And so we totally, when we started talking about that, she started seeing it as like, I'm doing it I'm getting excited to post every day and go on there every day. And what made the comment she made was, it's like, I just wish my business was like this. And that's when I kind of transitioned and so I'm like, wait a minute, this is your business. So since then, she went on and she bought the domain cozyfamilyhome.com, and we shifted her website, and instead of calling it, Kua Coaching, which was her name or is her name, it's like we're calling it Cozy Family Home, and we're inviting these women to the Cozy Family Home and be a part of her community. She's building of these professional women who are building this metaphorical home, building their dream home, whether it's a tangible home that they're actually physically building or building that metaphorical home with their significant others and their families, and all the challenges that these women face. And it's a community that can support that. And I said to her, I'm like, all we got to do right now is, with all the responsibilities you have, is we got to continue to do this on a daily basis and just grow your audience. And then as your audience grows, what we can do is we can then figure out how we can monetize it. And I say monetize it. I'm like, yeah, we can start with coaching. And I'm like, heck, you could have a Cozy Family Home wine glass, or, like a Snuggie, or like a warm fleece, for the wintertime that says, Cozy Family Home, because they want to be a part of your brand. Your brand has a look, an image, and a feel. That's what branding is. And you're bringing that to the table. We're starting to do some Instagram lives, short, quick Instagram lives, and talking about this Cozy Family Home, and just having it start from the place where she's at. It's that authenticity of where she's at, in terms of, she's got a full-time job that's exhausting, and they can make good money doing it. But then you got to come home, and you come home to these 4 kids, one of them which being a newborn, right? And a husband who works full time. And then you're managing the build out of your home, which any of you have ever done things like that. Never mind just renovate, a home or part of your home, but never build a new home from scratch. It is so consuming and so exhausting, and takes a lot of time, energy, and resources, obviously financially. So it's exhausting. So I'm like, you just need to come from where you're at. If you're having an up day, a down day, a middle day, or everywhere, loopy day, that's where you come from. And we do these Instagram lives, and with Instagram, they disappear within 24 hours. So we download them, we get them up onto YouTube, and we get them to your website, in your, if you will, university, like mine on myselingcoaching.com. And then you get on Instagram, and if they miss these, these quick shows that she's doing, is invite them over to cozyfamilyhome.com, right? And on there, we have lead capture. We've got a great free resource. And so we're starting to build that community, and they're starting to get a better picture of her and what she's doing. And she's not selling coaching, but she's being a coach. She's role modeling it. And as she starts to help these people, they're going to start to understand what she does as a coach. So have some call to actions where, she can help you as their coach. And next thing you know, she's going to start getting clients. And that's the brand and how that started to form. And that becomes her message. And if you can see, she's doing it from the heart. She's being authentic, and she's coming from that authentic place. And she's creating it from that space where it's authenticity. And that's what I want you to be able to do. And that just comes from her story of her life and where it is and where it's going and how she's starting to help people there. And especially when you're busy, everyone's busy. Everyone's got their crosses that they bear, where their time, energy, money is being called to. But when you're passionate about something, like she was so passionate about this, she couldn't wait. Like all she does at work is she just keeps checking her phone and she keeps wanting to get into Cozy Family Home, and see how many followers are there. And all I'm doing with that right now is just starting to shape it just a little bit, not just a little bit every session that we have, and just start to move it along a little bit, give her just one more thing to do. And it's all right. So we've been building up to where it is now. And then we're going to continue building on that process. But the great part is now it's been like, let's say 3 months. She's up over 900 plus followers. Now she's trying to start getting some traction and doing those Instagram lives and getting people over to our website. So then we're going to start building that email community. And that's how it's going to start to shape up. And you know what? This might, and it will. I told her, I'm like, this is going to take you probably much longer than you thought it would take. All right. And when we started talking last year, hey, I want to quit my job by whatever it was, November 2019. I said, you know what? Let's scratch that off. Let's not worry about that. And let's just allow this process to evolve. And as you evolve and have it come from a place of passion and show that and show up on a daily basis. And it's easy to show up no matter how busy you are. It's easy to show up when you're passionate about something. And that's what she's doing. And it's exciting and it's fun along the way. And therefore, it doesn't matter necessarily when she quits her job, because it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. Hopefully that story's been helpful for you. I want to share one more before I wrap this up. Is another one of my clients. I've been working with him and it's fairly new, probably within 3 months, probably not even that long. Let's call it 2 months, right? Had a couple of sessions, and then there was some good space in between there in terms of really starting to work through that message. And as I started to work through this person's story, he was in the corporate world and climbing up that ladder, making more and more money. And while the person's doing that, obviously they're a driven professional. All the meanwhile, they're neglecting their family, and not intentionally neglecting their family. From on paper, as this person told me, they're the coach of their children's Little League games. They're showing up physically to all the practices and all the events, the musicals or whatever they have for their kids, but their mind is not there. Their physical body might be there, which actually says a lot because most people don't even physically show up. But regardless of that, they weren't present for their spouse. They weren't present for their kids. Fast forward, the career is more and more demanding, less and less fulfilling. Money, as when you don't have the money means everything. When you start creating some income and you do have money and you have more than enough money, it's never about the money. The money doesn't even matter. It always matters to a certain point, but it doesn't drive you anymore. There's no purpose in it anymore other than, what it needs to be for. And so there's no purpose anymore. And it's a very empty space to come home to, and having that stress and then not being there for your family and feeling connected to them and then coming home. It's a very lonely space because the people that you want to share with the most and confide in the most can't even be there for you. Not that they don't want to be there for, they can't be there for them because you're not there for them. And they have their own challenges, especially your spouse when you come home. So now fast forward into their coaching practice and their seminar and coaching company is they're looking at it saying like, you know what, I want to help those German professionals. And I don't want them to sacrifice their personal and their family happiness, right? But at the same time, they're driven. So when we first came at it, the first part was where we came at it where we were saying, okay, well, let's help these professionals, not only accelerate their success, but do it without sacrificing their family happiness. And then so we went down that path a little bit, and I was on board with that. They were on board with it. And we started kind of talking about it a little bit more. And this person's a go-getter. They're out there. They're networking. And with all that, and as much as it was definitely down the right path, there was still something not quite right. There was, where they weren't just like really, embracing it. And I could feel it too in the last conversation we had this week. We were talking it out, and I was looking at their website and some of their information. And I said, it feels like something's mixed up with the message, right? Because we're going at it with helping these professionals, having them accelerate their success without sacrificing their personal and their family happiness. But the thing about is that we're going at these professionals who are already successful, and they're never going to stop driving forward with their success. But the real message is, in terms of the outcome, isn't accelerating their success. They're going to do that anyways and regardless. The real outcome that they're going for, that they're going to pay this person thousands of dollars for, is to stop sacrificing their family happiness in their family relationships, or said differently, improving their family happiness. Because the thing is, they don't know how to do that, and they want to do that. And when you want to do that, but you're scared and you don't have anything to go off of, what happens is you revert back to what's comfortable. And what's comfortable for them is their success and accelerating their success. That's why they're there in the first place. And they keep focusing on that and shifting there when they're uncomfortable. And that just keeps on going and going and going. Meanwhile, over here, they're neglecting more and more of their families. And even though they want to change it, they don't know how. And what you're doing here is, instead of saying, helping those driven professionals accelerate their success without sacrificing their personal and family happiness, we actually flipped it around, right? When we flipped it around, it made sense, right? It's helping those driven professionals improve their family life without sacrificing their business success. And that's when we flipped it around. It made complete sense. It's like the outcome is the personal and family happiness. That's what they're going to spend thousands of dollars with you for, right? And we're going after this population and they're scared and they don't know what to do. So they keep going back to that personal success. So it's like, where they're scared is they're like, well, I want to work on my family. I want to come closer to my spouse. I want to be closer to my kids and be there not only physically, but also emotionally and mentally and spiritually, and listen to them and be there for them as a father, as a husband, as whatever I am, as a wife, right? Whatever their role is. But it's like, I'm scared that if I do that, I'm also maybe the breadwinner. I'm also, created a very comfortable lifestyle. Typically, I found with working with a lot of people that have created a very healthy income for themselves. Some are very frugal in the sense of, when they earn more and more income, they keep their lifestyle at a manageable level. So there's much more money at the end of the month than is required of them. But some people, what they do is they elevate their success their success goes up here income-wise, and then they elevate their lifestyle to be very close to and sometimes even exceed that level of income. So just because they got a couple extra zeros at the end of their check, every month or whatever it is, they also have a couple extra zeros in terms of what their financial responsibilities are. And that's not a great situation to be in. And so what happens is they keep running, they keep chasing, and they keep going more and more, and they've got to live up to that. And so now it's their worry is I can't sacrifice that business success, but I also want to improve my family relationships. So when we started to flip that, right? When we started to flip that around, what happened was it made sense. And now when we looked at the website, everything was different, right? It was different in the sense of that we're highlighting himself as that person now, because when they went through in the past, they got a divorce, they got out of that relationship, it was a bad relationship. And how could it be, right? Because he wasn't there, right? And so now he's in this new relationship with his kids and her kids, and they're moving forward with this blended family. And now what happens is they're starting this business. He's in a position where he's honoring that and he's focusing on that. And that's his primary piece. And the great part about the business itself is that the more he is there as a father and as a husband, the great part about it is that's only going to be showing him and being a role model for what he's doing within his business. And that's the greatest part about it all, is that he's coming from that most authentic space. And this is my message to all of you listening to this, is I want you to come from this most authentic space. And it requires you being vulnerable. It requires you being vulnerable to the point where, you've got to look back to your story and figure out, what have I gone through? And a lot of times when I start working with my mentor coaching clients, and I'm like, tell me your story. Tell me where you've been through. What brought you to this position right now where you're looking to launch the seminar and coaching company of yours? And they tell me that story. And I'll ask that question, what have you been through? Your high highs, your low lows, whatever. What's your story? Some people often say like, oh, I don't really have a story, or I don't really have, there's nothing that's really tragic that happened to me. And it's not about tragedy, right? It's not about like super highs and super lows, even though that's what can start the story off. It's about putting your stamp on it. Right. And when I say your stamp is your story. It's you're the brand. There's a lot of branding people out there. Like, I guess what a pet peeve of mine is, if you could say, or if I want to rant and rave, is when someone tells me they hired someone to help them with their branding and they have a branding specialist. And I'm not knocking you branding specialists out there, et cetera. But what I'm saying is like with our business of a coaching business, like you're the brand. Like, what are you trying to figure out? Your colors, like your logo and the look, the feel, like that comes from you. You need someone to help you figure that out. It's like, tell me their story. Tell me where you've come from. What is your message? That's the brand, right? At the end of the day, we're all generic life coaches, right? And we're all helping people lead a more fulfilling and passionate life at the end of the day, right? That's all we're doing. Even as a coach who helps you transition to a full-time business, that's all I'm doing is I'm helping you create the lifestyle you want and find purpose in just a different avenue of your business. But it ultimately stems to you as a whole person, right? So the whole point is that, I think I spit on the camera. And so the whole point of this whole thing is that we're all life coaches that are doing the same thing. But what makes us unique is not necessarily just the headline of helping who with what specifically. Yes, that's a way to do it. But what makes us unique and what carves out our niche is us and our story of where we come from and why we do what we do. When we start to understand why we do what we do, and that stems from our story and where we come from, that's our stamp on it. And we start speaking around that, and we start from there. That's our starting point. And we go from there. People start to connect with us and who we are because they see us a part of themselves in us, in either who they are or who they were or who they hope to or want to be. And they start to begin to trust us, and they begin to see a little window of hope because they start to like, wow, this person was where I am now, and look at where they are now. And you might think, oh my God, well, I'm nowhere now. Maybe sometimes you don't feel like you've achieved anything or feel like, you've gotten to where you want to go yet, but you don't have to. You're at some point in your journey, and at some point you were before that, and that's where they are now. And even if you're just a few steps ahead of them, guess what? You can help them. You just got to be confident enough or forget about confident enough. Let me just rewind and scratch that, because maybe you don't have any confidence. You got to be willing enough to begin to speak your message. Be willing enough to get it out there in its purest virgin format where it's just messy and you don't have any self-confidence and you don't know what it sounds like or where it's going quite yet. Be willing enough to get it out there. And when you're willing enough to start to get out there, you have to begin to trust that it's going to start to shape up. And that's where it can evolve from. So my message for you today is start reflecting inward, especially if you're in that place where, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. I don't know where to start. Like, you are that message. And your story, it stems from a highlight of your story. What I've gotten really good at is not only having done this myself for so long, but having worked with hundreds of people and now coaches over the last many years, doing this full-time since 2004, is I've gotten really good at, listening to someone's story and then really identifying their niche, or I was going to say their niche in the story, but also that niche in the story ends up becoming their niche. And maybe it's something so obvious and something that's obvious that's out there, or maybe it's just a certain way that they do things, a certain quality or attribute that they have that makes it unique, that puts that unique stamp on their message. I've had the great ability to be able to listen to a story and be able to point that out. So in closing with this, hopefully none of this has been helpful for you, but if you're really struggling with this, I'm just going to invite you to consider taking a closer look at how I could help you if you were to work with me and hire me as your mentor coach. And if that's something that you want to talk more about, whether you're there or not yet, I can help assess that for you. Just go to sellingcoaching.com under the Work With Me page and scroll to the bottom and fill out that form. And what's going to happen from there is I'll reach out to you. I will call you because you're going to put your phone number on there. And let's just create a relaxed conversation. It's a 10, 15-minute call. Let's create a relaxed conversation and let's start to see where you're at with that. And maybe the timing's not right for you, and that's perfectly okay. But at least if you're there, stop struggling. Hopefully this education I've given you today has been helpful for you. You can start thinking about it. But if you're still quite there and you're just like, I want to move forward with this, again, go to sellingcoaching.com, go to the Work With Me page, fill out the form at the bottom, and we will connect and we can figure out where to go from there.